Hey, 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 you know what it is. You know where you is. Yes, oh yes, it is that time once again for the I Am the Possible podcast experience. Yes, the place where possibilities become perspective. Yes, welcome guys once again into the I Am the Possible universe. I am so excited to be rocking with you once again. I is your host, Tryone C.W. Lynch, Mr. What, and I is your self-worth specialist. Guys, thank you so much for rocking with me once again in the I Am the Possible universe. Guys, before I get into anything else, I have to pause for the cause, and you guys know what the cause is. That's right. That's you. Thank you for every email. Thank you for every review. Thank you for every download. Thank you for every share, for every comment, for every like. Thank you for just showing up, right? Because you guys know what the philosophy is around here. Your presence is the greatest present that any of you guys could ever give me. So thank you so much for rocking with me once again. Guys, I'm super excited. I was talking to my father just the other day and he said, Travell, you really need to slow down, man. You be talking so fast, it's hard to catch up with you sometimes. But listen, I'm just excited. I'm excited to share with you today's episode and experience. It is a very special one because it is another interview edition of the I Am the Possible podcast. If you've never seen an interview, it's just an interview. It's a conversation that I have. I open up the platform to share a moment with someone very special to me, someone that I know will add value to you, someone that I know is going to bring it, and they're going to be professional, they're going to be on point, they're going to be someone who is genuine, who is authentic, someone who is transparent, and someone who's going to love on you a little bit. So today, it is no different. Today, I am bringing to the stage. Today, we are going to have a conversation with the one and the only Pastor Tyrone Morrison. This is a brother that I just recently met this year, got to know him through LinkedIn, got to know him through some other associates, and it has been a blessing. This man is full of so much wisdom, so much knowledge. He is a teacher, he is a preacher, he's a father, he is so many different things. But what I love about him is he is truly the essence, and he focuses on this, and he's going to be talking a lot about this in today's episode. But I really see him truly walking in and operating in what's known as servant leadership. Servant leadership. It is the greatest form of leadership because it is the model in which Jesus, really operated in and really showed us how to walk in. I believe that it is at that level of submission to the Father and then service to others where true leadership, the most inspirational form of leadership, is developed, because there's many kinds of leadership models, right? There's many kinds of capacities and ways that we can flow in this thing called leadership. But when we really break down servant leadership, servanthood, submission to the Father, service to our community, service to our fellow man, this brother right here, Pastor Tyrone Morrison, I believe really summarizes it and really embodies the essence and the spirit of what that's all about. So today I'm going to read his bio, and then we're going to flow, as we always do, right into this episode. Just a great time breaking it down with my brother. Just a great time listening and gleaming. He has so much to share. And it was one of those episodes where it was just hard for me to say cut, right? To say, hey, man, we got to stop it. We got to end it here, because the gems, the jewels, the nuggets that he drops, man, in just telling his story. He's a great storyteller, a great teacher, like I said earlier, a preacher from the pulpit, dynamic and powerful. But he's just a good, genuine brother that you can really relate to and really lean into. So I'm going to do him the honor by reading his official bio, and then we're going to flow right into this experience with my brother. All right, here we go. Tyrone Morrison, he is a husband, a pastor, a sought after speaker, and a D.E.I, diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. His goal is to teach people to live the lives they were meant to live by offering services in leadership, personal development, and helping people and organizations create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive work environment by learning to build, and I love this, build intentional bridges. My goodness, I can preach on that one. Tyrone has more than 19 years of experience as a speaker. He has worked as a youth pastor, associate pastor, and a speaker in the commercial, the government, and nonprofit sectors. Mr. Morrison gives keynote addresses and conducts workshops. He has loved speaking globally, nationally, locally to various groups numbering 5 to over 5,000 people. Tyrone, he established Tyrone Morrison's LLC in 2021 with the goal of assisting individuals, businesses, and nonprofit organizations to live their intended personal and organizational lives. In his leisure time, family man, in his leisure time, Tyrone enjoys spending time with his wife and with his daughter. They enjoy barbecuing for the family, friends, socializing, and occasionally he will attend some sporting events. Guys, I would say sit back and relax. I would say kick up your feet and enjoy. I would say that, except you are about to go into a educational experience, not a boring one. Okay, don't get turned off. This is some elevated education, all right? So I'm going to say get your pen and get your pad ready because you want to capture what he's going to be dropping. These jewels, man, these nuggets, these gems. He's going to be dropping them, and I know that you're going to want to pick them up, write things down, make that hand to brain connection, man. Get these things sown in your heart so that they can spring up, man. Just a tree and a forest of good fortune for you in your life. He's going to be breaking down some economic things as well. So again, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to say too much. Let's go ahead and flow right into this week's episode. Until next time, I love y'all. I'm praying for y'all. I'm believing in y'all. This is Travell C.W. Lynch, Mr. What, and this is the I Am the Possible podcast experience, the place where possibilities become perspective. And this is another very special episode of the interview edition of the experience with my man, Pastor Tyrone Morrison. Let's get right into it. Peace. Just what's new in your world? What are you working on right now? What's hot and heavy? What's on your heart right now?
Right now, man, I've just been doing a lot of studying on your paradigm. And our paradigms are shaped. Really, a paradigm is a part of our subconscious mind that entails our beliefs, our behaviors, probably 95% of the decisions that we make are out of our subconscious mind. And really how that subconscious has been trained for us. We have been taught, on how to do that, even subconsciously. And the science shows how a lot of our beliefs and a lot of our behaviors and attitudes, a lot of that stuff can even be transferred down from generation to generation. And a lot of people we're not cognizant of our subconscious mind. And as I'm reading, I just did a whole 3 parts to the series with our church on a paradigm shift. And it's like the importance of having of changing our paradigm. If we want to be successful, achieve success in our personal lives, in our spiritual lives, in our relationships, in our business, in our finances, we have to shift our paradigm, and really train that. So I really walked them through that. First session was you have to see yourself there. You got to have a different type of spirit about you, like a Caleb and Joshua did versus the Israelites. They saw themselves in the land. They saw themselves possessing the land. They saw themselves, as well able. They said to the Israelites, "We are well able." They saw themselves as well able. They saw themselves as capable. They saw the promise more over the problem, versus the Israelites. where they were conditioned by Egypt and their 400 plus years of slavery in Egypt. That's conditioned their mindset. So they never saw themselves as winning. They never saw themselves as being capable of possessing the fruit of the land, even though they went out and they grabbed it.
Right, exactly. Yes.
You know what I mean? They grabbed that. They saw themselves as grasshoppers. So in order to really change your paradigm, you have to switch your paradigm from seeing yourself as unable to well able. You have to see yourselves as, from going from having a low self-esteem to having a positive self-esteem. And just even talking about your self-esteem, how that alone is so vitally important to any type of growth or any type of success really in life, is you have to learn how to have a good self-esteem, because low self-esteem impacts how you relate to each other. It impacts everything, because you're not seeing yourself as valuable, or as important. So we walked them through that. But then I talked about expanding our paradigm and how you need to have a vision,
Yes.
and how really a God-given vision. Now, there's your vision, and then there's a God-given vision. It's important to have your vision where you're planning, where you're seeing that, where you want to be in the next 5 years and the next
Right.
2, so forth. But when God gives you a vision, it's a much bigger vision than what we can comprehend. It causes us to get past our limited and finite way of thinking, because scripture says that God brought, Abram out of his tent, and caused him to shift his perspective and look up to the stars. And he said, so shall your descendants be, because Abram believed that, he didn't have an heir to pass on his inheritance to.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But God had different plans. God said, your heir shall come out of your seed, shall come out of your own body, and then he said, look up to the stars, so shall your descendants be. So you're concerned about passing your inheritance to Eleazar, but you're limiting off a small vision, So God-given vision, it expands your perspective, and it really gets you out of your comfort zone. And now when we have a vision, now we can make goals. Now we can make, we can plan. We can write the vision down, make it plain, so that the runner can run with it. So in other words, the vision's supposed to outlive you in the first anyways.
Right.
So those are the first 2 sessions, and then last week we just talked about, changing our habits, because really with your paradigm, it's really made up of your habits that we've created. And if we want to, we know that we need to do better. We know that we need to go work out. We know we need to have a financial plan. We know that we need to do this, but what's the thing that's keeping us back? It's our habits. Those small decisions that you're making every single day, those small things that we're making every single day, that's our habits. And a lot of time with our habits, we're doing these things even negatively, instinctively.
That's right.
You made a decision to, whatever we're doing, you made a decision to do it. You made a conscious decision to put on what you did, even though in your mind you're thinking, oh, I'm putting on clothes.
Right.
So it's changing our habits, and it broke down on how we should change our habits. We have to we have to be disciplined and really train our habits. There's plenty of scripture that I'm going a lot on scripture, but a lot of scripture.
That's fine. Totally. Yeah.
That points out on renewing the mind. We know Romans 12:2, be transformed by the entire renewing of your mind, that you may see in the good and perfect will of the Father. But then Ephesians 4:23 says, be transformed by the spirit of your mind. The spirit of your mind, that's your subconscious mind, your habits, that we're doing. And we have to train this. And again, Hebrews, no discipline is pleasant for the moment, but painful.
Right.
And
Yeah.
talking about that training, and anytime we want to change a habit, we have to train it.
That's right.
And you have to be, this is where personal growth comes in, or personal development, is you have to be committed to learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to be a great leader in your business or in your family, at your home, you got to be committed to learning, and whether that's learning through, just having experience, positive and negative experiences as a part of your learning, getting mentors. I said learning and being coached.
Right.
My God, being coached is so important.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Being coached is so vitally important. And, whether that's formal education, even though we can argue back and forth about the information that we've learned.
Right.
Information changes all the time, but it's the disciplines that you learn along the way that stay with you. It's that constant learning, being committed to learning. You're doing it with all of your heart. You're passionate about learning. I used to not be somebody who liked to read books, but I've learned to love books now and love to listen to podcasts or listen to audiobooks, because that's somebody's brain recorded or somebody's brain on paper that is showing you and teaching you vital information that can change your relationship with money, change your relationship with relationships, change your relationship with business and so forth. It's somebody's showing us the way, but we're not tuned in,
right,
to that. We're so busy following the celebrities and gossip. I mean, literally, you got people putting all this information out there for free, a lot of them these days.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yes,
just talking about those habits and, training our habits. I said commitment to learning, commitment to be coached. Can you be led? Can you come under leadership? Can you, I told them how a good coach is able to lead from in front, give you the instructions, aid you from the side, like a spotter, working out, we have a spotter, but then also encourage you, that's something John Maxwell teaches. So it's like, but yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
That's the vein I'm on, man.
yeah, I'm feeling that, man. Yes, man. So many points you hit, so many things that I wanna dive into and just kind of unpack, man. Because I as you were talking about, things that we have to train, that's one of those hard lessons that many of us don't want to learn, don't want to hear. I remember a couple of Sundays ago, I forgot what I was talking on, but something came up during the service where I shared the fact that my mindset coach taught me that many of us use the phrase "rise to the occasion." And it's sort of like a popular phrase, right? Oh, you're going to rise to the occasion. And one of the first things that my mentor taught me was, no, we don't rise to the occasion necessarily. You rise to the level of your training. You rise and you do most often what you've trained yourself to do. You think you're going to be Spider-Man, Superman, Batman when the going gets rough. You think you're going to rise to the occasion, but he says, no, more times than not, you rise to the level of your training. If you train cowardice, you're probably going to retreat. If you train quitting right before the finish line, you're probably going to keep coming up short. If you trained these bad habits that you spoke about, you're probably going to continue those bad habits. No magical, mystical miracle is going to occur, most likely, right? Obviously, there's always the anomaly, that there's always that one-off, but for the most part, our lives are very habitual. They are instant replays. Today will be instant replay of yesterday in most cases. So, man, so you brought up a lot of good stuff. So I want to dive into your mind because I didn't share it earlier, man, but this moment, this platform, this hour, it is all about you, highlighting you, hearing your voice, I want to learn. I'm already learning because I got some financial stuff that I want to ask you about, because that wealth within, I know that's an area for me, and it might be an area for someone that's listening or watching. My relationship with money, because I've always had the narrative, especially as a man of God in the church, servant leadership, right? It's all about the people. It's all about service. It's all about letting your light so shine. It's all about Jesus, the Christ. It's all about love. It's all about forgiveness. And I got all those down pat. But I'm coming to understand, and I'm coming to realize that within me, my relationship with money, abundance, wealth, is not that I don't want money, but perhaps I don't want money. Like perhaps, like I'm being like real with myself. Like perhaps I've written a story and I keep telling myself that it's not that important, but yet it is very important, because there's some things that are happening in my life that I'm being limited in my ability to do because my money is limited. So can you share, man? Can you give us, and flow with it, man, however you want to share, whether it's, the number one thing you should consider, the first step you should take. And it doesn't have to be in the context of, even money and wealth. I just put that in my framework because that's something that I'm currently facing and I'm wrestling through. But it could be anything when it comes to changing a habit, changing a framework, changing a perception, changing the way we approach a thing. What would you tell a listener, a viewer? Okay, I've come into this awareness. This area of my life is lacking. And I acknowledge that God probably wants me to do much, much better in this area. What would be something that you would encourage our listeners, or heck, encourage me?
Right.
What should I be trying to do, think about, consider, if I want to begin to shift my relationship with money and really form a new habit with receiving more money in my life? Because I got all the other things down pat. But there's something not clicking quite right when it comes to that in terms of abundance. I got good money. I can get by. But there's this wealth idea, abundance idea, more than I need idea, so that I can expand my reach idea. How would you speak to that?
Well, I mean, I was on that boat before too,
Okay.
and I'm continuing on that boat now, where it's renewing my mind in regards to wealth and money, specifically wealth, because wealth can go in regards to your health. Wealth can go in regards to relationships. Wealth can go in regards to, a whole bunch of aspects of life, because wealth is not just attributed to just money. But I had to understand, because, growing up in the church, obviously, where there's a negative doctrine that's been taught. And when we're talking about habits, a lot of stuff has been taught to us. And we've been taught that, okay, we're just to give all the time, right? Well, yes, I mean, we give and then receive. It's reciprocal, but God gives. I believe was it Deuteronomy or Exodus? He says God has given us the ability to create wealth. It is God's purpose for His people to be wealthy. And I'm a firm believer in wealthy, and specifically finances, because He's given you the ability to create wealth with a purpose. And that purpose is to establish his covenant in the earth. So there is a why to why God prospers us. There's a why to this. And it's what I'm continuing to learn, and what I've had to learn is, what are these principles that work here? Because you look around, I mean, even non-believers, non-people that don't follow Christ or don't believe in Jesus at all, are attributing wealth financially, right?
That's right.
And I'm like, we're claiming that Jesus is Lord, and I'm sitting there broke, right?
Come on.
And I do the math, and I'm like, God and broke don't go together. That does not go together. It is not His will for you to be broke like that, because if that was the case, Matthew 6:33 is not true, where you seek first the kingdom and his righteousness and all of these other things that we worry about will be added to us, right? What he's talking about there, if I really look at it, what he's actually saying is when you put your priorities straight in the kingdom, in a kingdom and the priorities straight here, and you work these principles, these things will yield it, will come to you because you're working the principles. You know, so even people that don't assume to be a Christian, if they know these principles, because principles are universal laws that God has put in the earth. You know, they are universal laws that are there. That's why you can see so many great speakers or so many great, you know, people creating money. You see, you know, Robert Kiyosaki or all these other people creating money and doing that because they've learned the principle, right?
Correct.
And guess what? The sun shines on the just and the unjust alike. So if you work these principles, these solid principles will work for you, right? We also have values. Values are what we hold dear to ourselves that help govern our behavior and our actions.
Right.
My value as a follower of Christ is based off of the Word of God, right? You know, that's how I'm going to make my decisions, and you know, and seek His righteousness within that. But righteousness basically says I'm obeying the law. You know,
that's right.
I'm in obedience and I'm in one accord with these laws. So in regards to wealth, I'm like, it is the will of God for us to be wealthy. I believe that we should be the most wealthy people in the earth.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you would say that because I second that. I echo that. I believe that. And that's why I think I'm taking on the challenge of facing myself, because while I believe that, it causes me to go even deeper to say, because I believe that, and I've got my reasons why I believe that, but the fact is I believe it. So if I believe that that's true and I am a representation of his kingdom, then what's my disconnect? Right. So that's what's making me really dive deeper into any area, whether it's money or any area where I say, if I believe that's God's will for my life as his representation, as his child, then what's my disconnect? And I'm starting to not be afraid to face that. But go ahead. I'm sorry, but that's what's so fascinating about it. It's like the two ideas that I carry they're not congruent, right?
Yeah.
So where's that disconnect? But go ahead.
But that's where your habits come in, you know, your subconscious mind and your habits. Because I know that I need to tithe, right? I know that I need to save money. I know that I need to invest and make the money work for me. So what's the thing that's holding me back? It is my habits. My habits, you know. Am I spending the money right away, you know, on things that are going to be perishable things that are not going to create wealth, you know, for me. Wealthy people have they have a system that they work by, you know, and they either invest the money, they have capital where they own property, they have stuff that is making them money, so that they prioritize putting their money in places that's going to make them money before they can use it to spend the money, you know. And that's like this I'm on the potter's wheel with this one. I'm learning this as we speak this. And it's like, because I look at I'm 39 now. For a long time I didn't practice that, you know. And it's like, been told it, didn't practice it. Why? Because of habits, right? I built habits. So now I got to confront these habits regarding how I'm spending my money. With habits come your emotions. And it's, you know, you get tempted with things. You're attached to a certain way of doing things. And so we had to break these, to confront these negative emotions that's keeping me there, you know, and really crucifying that, you know, and aligning that with the Word of God, but then also this information that even whoever it is out there that's giving good financial advice, I got to align myself with this information, you know, and say, okay, how can I develop a better habit? How can I develop a plan, you know, to be successful and, you know, to have this money grow in the next 6 months, 5 months, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you know, do I got a financial advisor? Do I have, you know, there's people, he's given us people in our lives to help aid you, and coaches. Scripture says it like this: I've given you pastors, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yes, yes, yes.
Practically, that looks in the form of your advisor, of financial advisors, of therapists, of business coaches. You know, God has given you these types of people. These types of people are there to help you, you know,
Right. Right.
develop in these areas. But what are we doing? Are we letting fear come into our mind? Are we so attached to our old habits? Are you letting your own pride get in the way of confronting your old habits? Because this is where you need to change. If this is where we need to go, this is where we need to change. Right?
Yes.
So.
Yes. That makes total sense, man. It makes so much sense. And it's the confronting of those habits, because it's something's driving those habits. Something's driving what you do on a regular basis. And I think a lot of it, because I used to not push away emotional intelligence as a topic and you know, sort of as a read, but I didn't find it interesting until I got certified as a coach. And then I started to learn, oh, wait a minute, emotions aren't what I used to think that they were.
No.
So now, since I've gotten a better handle on confronting, engaging with, processing my emotions, even allowing my emotions to be what they are and to learn from my emotions, the more I dare to confront the hard things in my life, because I'm no longer afraid to cry, or I'm no longer afraid to be down. I mean, we can go through the Psalms, we can go through, right? It's like people are emotional all throughout the Bible, and God kind of like still loved them and still worked with them, right? So this whole stigma about emotions and how we should feel and gotta feel, and you know, all of that stuff that we go through. So anyway, my point was that you were talking about habits and really confronting and really processing those habits because something's driving them. I think a lot of people are afraid to confront the habit because there is such a emotional attachment. And you even brought up attachment. That's a huge word, man. We are attached to an emotion that we're either looking to feel, like we want to magnetize it to us. I want to feel happy. I want to feel loved. I want to feel free. Or we're avoiding, we're trying to shun or avoid, duck and dodge a certain emotion. So we still do certain things, right? AKA habits to either warrant that emotion or avoid that emotion, right? In your experience working with individuals, teaching, preaching, ministering, you know, even to men, you know, especially when you identify someone, you know, not wanting to face an emotion or someone not wanting to go there, what have you counseled? What have you shared? What have you, you know, kind of what was the process maybe that you took them through to better confront those emotions? Because I think that the emotions are rooted or very connected to the habits that we have. And I think if we can tackle the emotional part, then we can better control and change the habits that we have.
Well, I try to examine what's our story.
Okay.
You know, what is our story? Like when I do DEI consulting, you know, now we have people that's on the right or the left about that, and we have our strong emotions about this. And it's like we think that if you're doing this, you're part of the woke left, right? And you know, there is stuff that's attached to that right now. And I mean, I ain't gonna lie, there is people that are pushing a certain type of agenda. with that. But not all of us, the majority that I know that are actually good people that are trying to educate that how and really confront our subconscious mind, our biases, because we've been trained to think a certain way, which impacts how we relate to one another, and really how our systemic ways of governing and doing things has been set up, and we've adapted it without even thinking. So I start with even my story, and by showing my story, I can be vulnerable with my story and say, this is where I struggled with, this is how I used to think, this is how I used to do that. And normally what that does is that tears the walls down with them. Wow. And because I was vulnerable and real to them, they can now, I through time, it may not always be the first time, through time, I can earn their trust, and they can end up being vulnerable back, with me, because we're going with our story. Like you said, everybody has a story. Yeah. Everybody has a history. There's a story to how we got to where we are and what we believe, and why we think the way that we think. There's a reason to why we do this way. When we see people that having, let's say, a bad attitude, or they come off hard, or harsh with other people. If I'm just meeting that person, you could say, oh, that's a jerk. All right. That person's just an idiot, because you just have a personality clash. But what is their story? What is their story? They may not be an actual jerk. We're classifying them as right away. But if I understand more of your story, and I'm able to learn more about you, I'm able to cross that whether that's that racial boundary, that economic boundary, whatever that boundary is in our lives that's keeping us from engaging with people, right? If I can cross that and learn more about you, I can begin to have empathy with you. And there's the 3 levels of empathy: the cognitive, emotional, and compassionate. Right. So I begin to learn your story cognitively. I understand your background, and I didn't know that person came from a rougher part of the states. I didn't know that person came from this or that. I didn't know that they had, their mom and dad were divorced, at a young age, or they, dad wasn't in the picture, or mom wasn't in the picture, or whatever. I didn't know that they had to raise themselves from 13, 15 years old. Right.
Wow. That's right.
So they had to be tough. Yeah. They had to do this because this was their circumstances, and that's all that they, in those formative years, that a lot of times for people, that's all that they know.
Seriously. Yeah.
So it's like, with taking the time to learn other people, to learn their story, to examine this, I can not only just develop empathy, but now I can understand how your bias was formed.
That's right.
How your bias was formed, because like I grew up in the suburbs, my parents, provided a pretty good life for us, but I had a lot of people that were in the underprivileged areas. My friends, my wife was from those sides of the track, right?
Okay, right.
But she didn't adapt that mentality. But like she initially was, and they loved, and there's a lot of people that love their community, right? That doesn't, just because they live over there, that doesn't mean that they represent.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
But like growing up in the suburbs, they would teach you not to go over to certain areas of the community. Yeah. Why? Because they said, oh, the crime is high.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? I've heard that before.
Oh, 100 times. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the crime is high. Or if you're in that other part, they tell you don't go out in the suburbs because they're bougie, or because, so it's these narratives that are keeping each other from not engaging. And I'm like, we either stay on one side of the track or the other side. And that's, to me, that's part of the reason why that's what's keeping some people poor and some people, over here. And it's not bringing people together. And when we don't come together, we can't really see what the good that could really come out of that, how much better we can really come out of that. And you know, when I'm doing DEI consulting, I do my intentional bridge building, you know,
Correct. Right.
and
Yeah.
it's showing
Yeah.
how we can come together,
Yes, sir.
crossing beyond that borderline, going over to see somebody else on the other side of the tracks, diversifying your friend groups, you know, or the
Mhm.
people that you're surrounding with. Because if everybody that's around you looks like you, thinks like you, acts like you, there's a problem.
Yeah. That's
You
right.
know,
That's
there's a
right.
problem
That's
there.
right.
And you're buying into these narratives that's
Mhm.
forming your mindset and teaching your subconscious mind how to think, you know.
Wow.
So
Wow.
now we got people that because they've been taught how to think right now, we're having a problem when we're seeing DEI, you know, these type of initiatives talked about and saying how we need to systemically change some things, you
Mhm.
know, because to a healthy degree, we do. There's, you know, we do,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
systems change. I mean, we talked about principles and how really if we work the principles, that'll work for you. But
Mhm.
systems are what train people on how to think.
Wow.
You
Wow.
know? Systems have trained you how to think. And for many
Yes.
people, it's hard for them to overcome this. It's in their
Mhm.
mind.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
You know, so you're
Mhm.
teaching young minds. I mean, we know in Black and brown communities, there's young minds that don't think that they can make it out unless they're dribbling a ball, rapping a lyric, or selling drugs.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it takes a lot to teach them that no, you can make it. They are successful Black entrepreneurs. They are, you know,
Yes.
there are people that look just like you that are successful that learn these principles to
Mhm.
overcome whatever system that there is. You can still overcome it.
Right. That's right.
You know,
Yes.
you can
Yes.
still, and that's for it, not just Black and brown. That's for anybody that applies these principles. Like,
Right.
so,
That's so true, man. That's so good. As I'm listening, I'm like so many things, like so many bells and whistles and thoughts
yeah,
are just popping off in the head because it's like the systems and
yeah.
brother, I gotta go back and man, I gotta break the pen and the pad out because yeah, I'm gonna do a study on just this episode. Like you have shared and you're sharing so much, just a wealth of knowledge and just insight and
Yeah.
things. You're drawing up so much that in earlier stages, maybe I read a book. You talked
Mhm.
about principles. I remember reading Miles Monroe and understanding those kingdom principles.
I
But
love
then you
that
kind of
book.
just, man, that brother, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And and then you like, it's hot and heavy for a minute. And then you like, you kind of like drift away. And then you talked about John Maxwell. And I got a million John Maxwell books.
Yep.
Follow him on LinkedIn, right? I'm still John Maxwell. But then like you're hot and heavy real quick, and then you kind of drift away. And what the image I was getting from when you were talking was it's how the systems
Mhm.
train the system
Mhm.
within here. It's almost our way of thinking is a subsystem of the systems that has been trained by.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, if we can overcome this system, then we can overcome these systems. But it's very strategic, it's very intentional, it's very
Training.
focused.
Yeah. It's training.
And
Yeah.
it is training, man. And it's like, where would you find so whenever I hear training, right? Because I am going through a physical transformation right now. I am on a mission by the end of this year. I'm on a 2 pound per week mission of weight loss. I'm getting back down to my 170. I'm going to commit to running my first full marathon. I've ran several half marathons, but I got out of shape. I stopped training properly, picked up a lot of weight, and I'm back on it, right? And so I'm training myself because I want that runner's lifestyle that's very valuable to me. I
Mhm.
love running. I enjoy it. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Chariots of Fire, but I can identify like God truly speaks to me when I run, right?
Yeah.
That movie was just about just this top-notch runner, but he was doing it for the love of God. And
Right.
so
Right.
I say all this to ask you this question. because whenever I go into training, it's because I value something. There's something on the line. There is something absolutely on the line. I don't just train for the sake of just training. Earlier, I what was it that you said? I was thinking about kind of lost my train of thought, but there was this idea of oh yeah, a vision, having that vision. And when I hear vision, I hear value. And one thing that I didn't want to forget to mention, we don't have to circle all the way back, but you said something really profound that really stuck with me. How the wealth, how the financial, specifically financial form of wealth is for the expansion and the kingdom and the building of the kingdom, right? And in that moment, I said, I got to take note of that, because I think a part of my not valuing receiving money is because I've never associated it with kingdom expansion. I've made money about me. And because I'm okay, right? I got the corporate job. My wife works as well. We got the, double income. We're not poor. We're not struggling. We're not penny pinching. We're not, quote, paycheck to paycheck. I've gotten comfortable financially. And so I made the money about me, man. It's like, well, I got to work myself up to get the wealth because God says I'm supposed to have the wealth. But when I really search my soul, if it's in the context of me just making my bank account bigger, I really don't value it all that much. But you shared a perspective that I now have to face. I love expanding the kingdom, and I love the vision and the idea of God's glory extending and expanding and feeling the earth in and through the ministry that he's given me, and supporting ministries like yours to continue to grow and to expand. And if money has anything to do with that, it helps me to reframe, or at least begin the process of reframing my relationship with it. I don't know if that makes sense to you, man, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm thinking, like, what would you say in terms of value in a person's life, if they're a listener, if they're a watcher right now, and they want to change, but they are like me, they don't associate the change with anything that's valuable to them. Do you have a certain go-to strategy or way that you can help us to frame connecting the dots? Because it just happened for me real time, just kind of processing what you said. Like, it hit me so hard, like right now, real time, like, yo, there's a disconnect there. That happened for me, but maybe it's not happening for the watcher, for the listener. Is there any advice that you can give to us to help us to make that connection?
Well, I think that number one, naturally, when we're thinking about wealth, we're thinking about what can it do for me, which is kind of like the thing is like this. The world wasn't going to do for me. But when we take kingdom principles, that shifts our paradigm and thinks and goes from inward outward. So we're thinking about outward, inward, where kingdom principles teaches us to think inward, outward, right?
Love it. I love
You could talk about the whole process of renewal. When we receive Jesus as our Lord and personal Savior, our spirit man is renewed. It is we're made righteous by our faith, justified by faith, right? Spiritually. Now our mind needs renewing. Those habits, those former ways of thinking and former ways of living, that's the part that needs to be trained. So naturally, like you're saying, we're going to have these natural thoughts and it's going to be hard. It's going to be a stretch. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but being disciplined is the part of your process, right? And confronting those old emotions and changing that way of thinking. So I could be made righteous with God spiritually, but it has to be expressed naturally too.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It has to be an expression, and we have to form these habits here. So like I said, in regards to the money, I'm like, you have to understand the purpose. Like there's a purpose for your life, there's a purpose for money. Right?
Okay.
And
Yes.
it's like it's supposed to ebb and flow. It's supposed to be like a current, you know. It's not supposed to just stick. It's supposed to be a current to it. And there's a reason to why, principle wise, generosity works. you know,
Okay. Uh-huh.
we're taught to, okay, in the church, we're taught to tithe, right? 10% belongs to God. That's just a bare minimum. But throughout scripture, he's also talking about it's more better to give than it is to receive. It's more better to, he gives seed to the sower and bread for food.
Yes.
In other words, are you going to be responsible with what I've been given? Show responsibility and do what you're supposed to do with this money, because it's not supposed to just stick with you, and it's not going to just stick with you, right?
That's right.
So
true.
If you study people that are actually wealthy, a lot of them are generous. They're looking to be to be a philanthropist and give towards an organization, that's gonna, they know that this is how this system works here. And that's a principle. If you follow Jesus or not, this is a principle that works.
That's right. Yep.
And it works. So we have to shift our mindset to have this accompanying me, and just me getting the perishable things like a house, a car, the nice watch and all this, the shoes.
Right.
How can I give towards it? Because when I cast my bread on my water, it shall come back to me in many days. So it's like, I gotta be able to give, and I might as well do it to a good charitable organization than give it to the government, right? Either way, it's not going to just stick with you, right? So it's learning that principle of generosity. It's learning that principle. All the principles are right here in something called the Bible right here, right?
That's right. That's right.
These principles are right there. If we just learn how to work those principles, it's going to work for us. And I believe that the wealth of the sinners is stored up for the righteous. And it's like, righteousness means those who are in right standing, obeying these laws.
That's it. Yes. Right.
So,
right. So true, man. So true. Good stuff. Great stuff, man.
Yeah. It's a mindset change, man. It is the mindset change. So
it is so true, man. And I wanted to go back to the idea of us being given the fivefold ministry gifts, having those people in place. I know that for me, because we both love talking about leadership, we both love training leadership, we love developing the next leaders, and obviously those gifts and those giftings, can absolutely position you, and they do position you, in leadership. I wanted to ask you, as I look back over my life, because we both also have a passion for men. That's one thing I've learned of you. And, maybe one day, man, God willing, man, I can get down to one of them breakfasts, man. I'd be wanting to accept the invite to the breakfast, but I'm like, I can't, again, financially, that's what I'm talking about, brother. That's what I'm talking about. See, if you got that money, I can get on the airplane and get to the breakfast, right? So it's so many things that you're like, yeah, I don't need the money.
Money gives you access.
Money gives you access, man. Yeah, it gives you some options. Like, that would be dope to just get on the airplane and fly out there, man, and fellowship with you in the flesh. But you need some money.
We'll make it happen.
Okay, all right, there it is. Yep, it's said. It has been spoken. It is out there. Absolutely, man. So we both love men, both love, passionate about brothers, bringing men together, developing leaders. And as I look over my life, man, I have for so many years, and I'm looking to do a special Father's Day edition next month on the podcast, because men have, throughout my entire life been just, paramount in my development. Are there any men that you would highlight, maybe one, two, that you can point to over your lifetime where you can say, this man had a profound impact on my life, and share what that impact was. You can use anybody, you can use any point and stage in your life, whatever comes to heart. This man blessed my life tremendously, and this is how he blessed it. And sort of this is where, it propelled my life.
I'm somebody who was blessed to have a lot of good solid men that were in my life, whether that was just a part of our community. I have a father, thank God,
Yes.
that's been in my life, such a bedrock in my life. And really, he laid the foundation, for me. He's our senior pastor, but he really said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord here. And
yes,
laid those biblical principles that my brother and we follow. And not such saying that people are perfect or anything like that, but he set that foundation for us. So I attribute a lot to my dad for laying that foundation that said, this is what it looks to be a man and a man of God. And this is why it's so important to take these principles and live by these principles. But then also I've had mentors. One of my late mentors named John Dawson was one of my mentors that really, he came alongside and aided me during my youth years, and he gave me the vision of going out and getting an education, and going to pursuing higher education, and say, hey, you could do that. You can do that. He was really a good cheerleader. A lot of different other mentors that I've had too. Specifically men, and I've always also looked at people like a Miles Monroe, and had the privilege of actually knowing him for a period of time in my life. So,
oh wow,
so yeah, showing that's saying that, hey, you know what, we can live these principles here. We can, his message on the kingdom and on leadership. If you guys read his books, my goodness.
Yeah.
And he lived those.
Game changer. Yep.
Dr. Air Bernard, out in New York. Another good friend of our families, and just other men of God that's really taken time to speak into my life, both from afar and also up close. And talk about my mentors. Talk about God. I've been blessed to have good friends that could really speak into my life and get me back on track, because there was a time when I was not living the life I was supposed to, that I'm supposed to live, right? Everybody has a prodigal son moment where they have to go and discover who they are. They have to go and discover, you can't go off of mommy and daddy's beliefs and faith. You got to discover what your voice is, or where you are. And there's a point in time when I had to do that, but I had good friends that would check me and be like, yo, you ain't supposed to do that, right? If you're gonna be in a church, you need to be involved, you need to do that. So, and this is while I was going to parties and clubs and stuff like that, and PK doing that,
Oh yes.
But one of them is actually, he's with the Lord now, but he was such a great friend to me. His name was David. He was just such a great friend to me, and would call me and check me and be like, yo, you said this is what you said, okay, now go.
Wow.
Now go
Yes.
do that. So
That's a friend.
it's a series of men, having good mentors, having good friends. I was blessed to have a father, and other men that are like fathers too. And it really takes a village to raise a kid. And even in my adult years now, I still got other mentors. I still got people that are in front of me where I want to go, and modeling that for me and coaching me. You never stop learning. You never stop being willing to be coached. You never stop that journey. You know,
Right.
these figures might
Yeah.
switch from time to time, you know,
Right.
because you got to evaluate, you know, your relationships and who's speaking into your life. Who do you call your friends? I mean, it's all, you always have to evaluate. And I think it's Socrates that says the unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes, absolutely.
You
I know
know?
that one well. Yes, sir. I love that one. Yes, sir.
So that's examining your friends, that's examining your mentors, that's examining your career path, that's examining your habits. The unexamined life is not worth living. And does what we're doing, who we're hanging around, what we're doing now, does that align with what our mission is and what we desire to do and pursue and become? One of my challenges this year is, you know, having things in alignment, making sure everything that I do is in alignment with what my purpose is and what my mission is and what I want to accomplish. Because otherwise we can become doing all these other different things and we're like a rocking horse getting nowhere.
Totally. Yes.
And you're tired. And you're tired. And when you're tired, you're not going to give your best work and your best self, you know, so because you're spent.
That's right.
Tired does not mean effective. Busy does not mean effective.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, I think that was Denzel that said, don't mistake movement for progress.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying. It's like, yeah, man, just because you're moving a lot don't mean you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
That old rocking horse, yeah.
You're rocking it, you're doing all the effort.
Right.
You know, Dr. Monroe actually said that in one of his books. It's like you're doing all this effort and you're rocking back and forth, but you're not going anywhere. At the end of the day, it tires you out.
Wow.
You know, and when you're on mission and when you're living your life with a purpose, you have a passion that energizes you. There's a synergy that happens. You know, like I get up this morning, you know, I'm passionate about getting on the podcast. You know, I'm passionate about doing what I got to do. I mean, I get to do this.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I just changed my mind. And it's like, a lot of times we have a mindset that says, going back to money, that we have a mindset that says, I do this to make money. And I had to change my mind. I'm like, no, I do this because this is purpose driven. I get to help somebody.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I get to do that. And when you have a mindset that says, I get to do this, I get to show my skill set, I get to be an asset to somebody, I get to do this, that's a different type of drive.
Yes.
And that way also money, I'm not being a slave to money. Money is going to be my servant. You know?
Oh, yes. Oh, I love that one. That's a mic drop right there. Oh my goodness.
Is money your servant or are you its slave?
Ooh.
That's your tweet right there.
That's a tweet. That's a tweet. That's a LinkedIn post. That's a title for the next book. I mean, that's powerful. That's powerful because going back to what you talked about, the subconscious, many of us are subconsciously living that way.
Yeah.
The idea is I do this for money. And you know,
you're gonna be living paycheck to paycheck that way.
It does.
And it's gonna keep you tied into a job that you don't like. It's gonna keep you, you know, that's slavery. You know, that is modern day slavery. You know, versus where, you know, when you're doing this on purpose, you know, Jesus says it like this: you cannot be a lover of money and God at the same time. You cannot be, you know, serve mammon. He says the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money. In other words, your emotions, all that is attached to money. And that's the root of all evil. And that's why people will rob and steal and do all this, because they want the money. But when the Lord is your Lord, when Jesus is your Lord, you're doing this for a purpose. You're doing this because you're serving the Lord with gladness, and you're serving his people. I get more joy out of serving people now, out of genuinely serving people and seeing people get enjoyment, you know, from something that I helped them figure out.
Okay.
You know?
Yes.
You know, something that when I see a light bulb click in somebody's head and then they start living that out, I'm like,
Mhm.
that's my why.
Yes, yes.
You know, it's what my slogan says for my LLC. I said, it's helping people live the life that you're meant to live.
Mhm.
You're meant to
Yeah.
live a life of purpose. You're meant to live a wealthy life. You're meant to
Right.
live an abundant life.
Yes.
That's the life that you're meant to live. John 10:10 says a thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I came that you may have life. Amplified says in abundance to the full till it overflows. So
That's
it's
right.
like
That's right.
we are meant to live in abundance.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
abundance is in you.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But the reason, going back to what we're saying, subconscious mind, the reason why we're
Mm,
not doing that is because this hasn't been trained that way.
that's right. That's right. That's so, so true. So powerful, man. It's funny. I just changed my screensaver to prepare for abundance. Only because I need it because we touch these doggone things so much.
Yeah.
um, I knew I needed to put that in a place where I would see it often, right? Because we
Yeah.
always touching everything's in these doggone phones nowadays, man. So to that point, that was a step for me to retrain or to begin to retrain my idea of abundance and my relationship with abundance, because there are so many voices, which would take us on a whole different tangent, but there's so many, like, information has never been so accessible,
Mhm.
so rapid
Oh my
fire.
gosh.
And we are in the age, I'm sure you've like picked up, we are in the age of guruism.
Yeah.
Everybody is an expert. I mean, everybody has it. There's it. You will be hard pressed to go on any social media platform and find someone who does not know exactly what you need to do right now. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta this, you gotta. Come on, you got, like, everything starts off with you gotta. And if we are not able to, like, really ground ourselves and center ourselves and be able to allow God to be God and Jesus to be Lord, if we're not able to do that, everyone else and everything else becomes our Lord. And that's just something that I've
Mhm.
been meditating in this last week.
Yeah.
Everything becomes your Lord because everyone is so convincing. I mean, we are professional fake gurus. I mean, we are polished. These videos look amazing. Like, everyone knows exactly what you need to do with your life right now. Um, and I just find that really, really disturbing, because I say, as rooted as I think I am, as
Mhm.
centered as I attempt to be, I'm susceptible to that junk if I'm constantly exposing myself to it without any filter and without any
Yep.
consciousness to, yeah, that's what you say I need to do, but what does my Lord say? What does God say? What does the truest self within me, that voice within me, say? And being able to really manage that. I've got a couple more
Prayer
questions, man,
comes in.
before we.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah. So
That's where
that's
prayer
where
comes
I was
in.
going to kind of ask you. It's, what's your, because one of the core questions that I always ask my guests are, you know, and I framed it in the social media bombardment, fake guru context, but really it just amounts to the fact that we live in a world where there are so many voices,
Mhm.
so many voices. It can be friends, family, co-workers. It can be people in the church, right? But it's just voices. How do you manage the voices? How do you stay congruent with yourself? How do you stay at how do you stay, as we like to say in our modern culture, right? True to you, right? How do you be the most authentic version of you? I like to call it the centered self, the one that is
Mhm.
that most centered voice that is within us. But however you frame it, however you name it, um, can you share with us something that you do, maybe on a spiritual or practical level, to
Mhm.
just stay grounded, to, in a sense, protect or prevent yourself from just being led astray with every voice that's always pulling at your attention and trying to convince you that they have the answer for your life? How do you stay grounded?
Well, I say, first of all, spirituality is such an important part. I think that not just as a Christian, just in life in general, and the science will show that. You know, the statistics show that a deep sense of spirituality is so important because it centers you. As followers of Christ who believe in the Bible, we know that Jesus says that that he is the rock, that he is that sure foundation, you know, in our lives. He is that foundation that which we can build upon. So having a deep sense of spirituality and faith, and specifically in God, that's one thing that keeps me centered. Because the word says, it says, my sheep know my voice, and the voice of a stranger they do not follow. So where is the voice of God in this? Of course, information has become so accessible these days. I mean, positive and negative information, and you have to really develop discernment to be able to discern what's truth versus error, and what's truth versus what is not truth. On the positive side, information has been so accessible that it's impossible to be ignorant. It is stupid to be ignorant. If you stay being stupid, that is your choice. And you to be ignorant. I mean, we got the University of YouTube. We got the University of so many different things that are out here that people are giving you their knowledge on that. But then again, it's who are we listening to? So first thing that I try to do is I pray about it. I said, Lord, where are you speaking? To this, and is it for me? Because not everything is for me. Not everything. It might be, this person might be good, but that doesn't mean that they need to speak into my life. So
I like that.
Yes, not everything is for you. There's some types of foods that we all like, but it doesn't mean it's for you, right? Right. So it's using that discernment that comes into play. And one, spiritual discernment is so important, because spirit, what we understand as spirit, oftentimes manifests itself in the natural, right? We gotta listen to that inner man that says, you know what, you don't need to be listening to that. You need to turn that off. You don't need to be listening to this and that. But then also doing research on who that person is. Use your critical thinking. Are they qualified to, with this? What's their background? We learn that in higher education. You can't just cite anybody with higher education. You got to do your work and see what kind of credentials that they have, what kind of background that they have in this area. Like if you're you're a finance guy, right? You can't just be Joe Schmo, right? If I'm gonna be listening to you, most of them are going to have either a business. They may not have the education in it, but they have a business, that they have something that's going on for them. Where you're giving me advice, where now I can see tangible evidence that has worked for you. I could look, because people, they can look you up in a second these days. Right on your phone, they can look you up and see if you're fake or phony, true or phony. So
that's right.
What else do you got going on? Like what, is there a book out? Is there a company that you're running?
So true. And I never even thought about the citing piece. I was sitting with a friend of mine who's a professional psychiatrist, and he's been in the business, I don't know, 20, 30 years, but now he's at the university level. And he was sharing with me over lunch one day how his students were, in a sense, they're trying to take the easy, lazy way out when it came to their final paper. And I guess, they were supposed to, like you said, cite certain things. And one particular student was like, hey, man, here's my paper. And he looked at it and he said, well, like, he was trying not to be funny, but he was like, you can't use Wikipedia
No.
Baby, this is grad level. This ain't elementary no more. This up here, you can't use Wikipedia. So now hearing you say it, it's like, dude,
Yeah.
we got to do our research, man. That is so true. Who are you citing? And now that actually convicts me. Like, that now wakes me up a little more. Like, now I'm even that much more conscious. Like, literally, even real time today, because I love putting things to practice quick, like, so I can quickly train it and quickly make adjustments. When I open up my phone today, that's going to be there now. Like, okay, you say this, but how credible are you? Because there are YouTubers that I listen to, certain YouTubers, because they're charismatic, they come off very well read, they come off very professional, but that's not to say that it's not just a bunch of fluff. So again, it just gives me another tool for me to utilize in being critical and being careful about the content that I'm letting in. So that's an amazing tool right there, man.
And it's that citing, what that does is checking their character, you know, and it's making sure that this stuff's aligns, because you can't just pick up whatever from so and so. I don't know you from Adam, right?
Yeah.
You gotta do your research, and if I'm gonna follow you, there's a reason to why I'm gonna follow you. Like, if it's a Jeff Bezos, I'm like, you got knowledge that tangible knowledge that I've seen, right?
Right.
And a lot of them have been, college dropouts or whatever, but you've figured out a principle that has worked for you for years, and you have a track record now.
Right.
That's worked for you for years. What
exactly
follow your pattern, or Jeff Bezos, or a Patrick Bet-David, or a Grant Cardone, these other guys that can show you, because otherwise, there's so many different influencers that are out there now that are just, have the numbers, right? But have the followers.
Right.
Like, how do I know? I mean, it's like we're instant success these days. And going back to your teacher, I'm like, man, I don't know how it's like with these teacher checking sources now that the chat GBT is out. So it's like,
seriously, man. Oh my gosh. Oh, AI, man.
I'm like, I mean, how you do it? Because
yeah.
I mean, I use it too. I mean, it's a tool, but it's
I played with it just to see what kind of results it'd give me. Yeah. I mean, because
it's a tool, but it's like, I could easily see a student not being honest about that.
Right, writing your whole paper for you. Yeah.
Right.
I've used it to look up, because I post on a YouTube, and I ran across some content creator, and basically their whole perception, or their whole perspective on it was, throw your topic or title in there and just ask it to just give you titles, right? And then when it gives you the titles, it just creates I forgot how they put it, but there you go. Yep. It makes you think like, oh, I didn't consider that type of title. Oh, okay, well, maybe I could tweak it like this. But yeah, it's a tool. It should not be a handicap. It shouldn't be a crutch. Your go-to thing, man. So yeah. Well, let me ask you just a couple more questions if you've got the time. Just want to start wrapping it up. But I do got a couple of just core questions that I always like to ask people, and would love to hear your take on it. The first thing is, if leadership was a recipe, how we cook anything, right? You got a bowl and you got ingredients, and you got to whip it up and put it in the oven and bake it, and you're gonna make you a cake. If leadership was a recipe, yes, there's multiple ingredients to any recipe, to anything that you want to create. But in your words, in your world, what would you say is the number one ingredient? You cannot leave this out. You know how you make something and you say, hey, try this, and they taste it and they're like, it's good, but something's missing. Maybe you didn't add that, something's missing. What would you say if someone is an aspiring leader? Yes, there's a whole lot of things that can go into that, bowl, but if you leave this out, it's not going to quite come out the way that it should. What would you say that ingredient is?
Servitude.
Come on, speak on it.
Servitude.
Okay.
Because if you cannot be a good servant, you cannot be a good leader. You cannot. Servanthood is actually the thing that qualifies you to be a great leader. You know.
Yes.
Servitude is a thing that qualifies you to be a great leader. When I train and I speak about leadership, my framework of leadership is servant leadership.
Yes.
And it's now being proven that top-down leadership, I mean, sometimes top-down works in terms of making a quick decision, you know, bottom line type of decision. But now studies are showing that type of leadership does not work anymore, specifically with this millennial generation and Gen Zers. This does not work with that, because people are realizing that, hey, we are not a machine anymore. We're not a machine. We're not a bottom line. We are people. And it's showing how what's happening even outside of the workspace, how that impacts people's performance. So as leaders, we can't just be a leader by title. We have to embrace servant leadership as an attitude, as who we are. That's part of self-actualization, is understanding like who we are, what we're capable of doing, and embracing the servant leadership. Because if I'm leading you, I have to be somebody who also encourages and empowers you. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Because otherwise you're just another number. Right? I got to learn what it means to be a servant. You know, a servant first, where the bottom line isn't the product. People are the product.
Yes. Yes.
People is the bottom line. You know.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because if you have a service or if you have a product that's out there, how is your product serving people? How is that helping? In other words, when we're serving people, we're helping them find solutions to their problems. Right. Right now, I have a phone here, right? We named Steve Jobs found a way to solve a problem. You know, I'm an Apple user. I'm an Apple guy. Right?
Yeah, me too. All right.
But what set them apart is they found a way to serve the people. You know, they have a saying that your product should be an extension of yourself. So it's like, you know, what your service is an extension of who you are.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you cannot be a great leader if you're not a great servant. And part of being a great leader is having active listening skills, self-actualization, having active listening skills, problem solving, right? You have to learn how to have empathy with those who you're leading, right? Be an empathetic listener. Are you listening to understand, or are you just listening to just listen? Right?
Yes.
Listening to understand means I'm attentively listening to you.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people in so many organizations where they just get an email and it's like, you know, they're not really listening to understand that person, right?
No. Yeah.
And now we're making top-down decisions where, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, that has to happen at times. Not every leader wants to be just a top-down authoritarian person. You know, when it comes to, you know, to budget cuts and stuff like that, sometimes you have to make the tough decisions. But when I'm listening with empathy, how am I empowering other people? How am I training somebody else to take my spot?
That's right.
That's what a leader does. A leader trains other people so that the system, your business and your organization or your ministry can operate when you are gone.
Yes.
But that doesn't happen without serving people, you know?
That's right. Wow.
And
that's so
one thing I encourage young people is get involved in your church, get involved in your community, learn what it means to serve first. You know, you're not a leader just because you have the title.
Right.
You know, Servitude begins with you making the decision for you to be a leader, for you to embrace your core values and your principles, you to embrace that, and then you learn how to serve. Best way, I believe, is serving God first.
Right, pretty much. Yes, right.
And then how do you serve God? You serve people. So it ain't just
All
going
work
to
together.
church and singing a song. You're
Nah,
actually serving God by serving his people and
that's
helping
right.
and helping solve their problems. And in the midst of serving, this is a thing. You're going to learn your gifts. You're going to learn what your abilities are. You're going to learn how to do things, how things operate, how systems operate, how all these things operate. And you can learn that first by just being a servant. And, you know, job aside, I'm like, are you willing to even just volunteer?
That's right.
Are you, whether that's a church or a nonprofit or whatever, are you able to volunteer even for free because you're passionate about doing this? You cannot be a leader without first being a servant. Doesn't
love it. Does not work. Love it, man. Love it. Absolutely agree. Wow. Wow. Man, I am so excited about not only releasing this episode, I'm so excited about listening to it myself. You have created a university in like an hour. I don't know how long we've been on, but you have put on a university. This should be packaged as a course, man.
The master class.
There you go, the master class, man. Because I'm like, yo, you know, I am practicing presence, you know, being that empathetic listener, being that listener, you know, even in this moment. But you're making it hard, man. I was on the episode yesterday, and after we had wrapped up and everything, she said, well, you know, because I was, you know, sharing that I've just got back to interviewing people, or like I like to say, having conversations, right? Because for the longest, this platform was just a way for me to get out everything that God was putting in me. And so she just made a comment. She says, well, you know, unlike other people who have interviewed me, you come off very genuine. You seem to be very present. So you kind of do it very naturally. And I was sharing that to say that what you're sharing is making it difficult. Like, I'm still fighting through, like, okay, this is being recorded, brother. You can just go back later on. You ain't got to be processing nothing in the moment. But you're sharing so much knowledge, wealth, understanding, insights, revelation, that it's hard for me to, like, okay, don't think about that too long. Wait till you record it. Wait till it's done. You can go back and take notes. But you're hitting on all cylinders, man. You are adding so much value to my life, and I know that anyone who's watching and listening, they are receiving so much from you, man. I want to wrap up with this last question, because I still have to. I'm still working a 9 to 5, as I always tell folks, but it won't be for long. I am coming into the ministry at a full-time capacity. I'm gonna keep speaking those.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. So
I know, I do for a season, man. For a season. I don't want to stay here, man. But I do have to start wrapping it up here soon. But the last question that I always ask folks is something that I believe in, which is the reason I do what I do. This is my bread and butter. This is my core contribution to society. This is I am the possible. This is why I created this platform and this podcast, because I love people, or I love to help people to, as I frame it, to innovate their identity. I think people have, or many people, at least what I suffered from, just a poor self-concept, poor self-image, poor self-idea. And that comes about for a plethora of reasons. Most of it is during our formative years, the things that were done to us, said to us, the environmental things, the list goes on, why we develop such a poor self-image. But that's what I live and breathe for, is helping people to innovate, take those things which are old and see them in a new light. And specifically, I love to help people to innovate their idea of themselves. So I have what I call a inspiring idea of myself. And that's a part of what I teach and train other people to do, is to develop an inspiring idea of themselves. An idea that when you think of you, it inspires you. It motivates you. It lights a fire under you, not because you're conceited, big-headed, none of that mess. It's the realization, the self-accusation that you talked about earlier, really coming closer to getting a glimpse of the in God's likeness and God's image version of you. And I frame it, right, with certain phrases. And so just to give you an example of one, but you put it in your own context, your own, you be authentic to you. But one thing that I always share with people is that I see myself as God's communication channel.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I wake up to each and every morning is I am my creator's communication channel. I am tuned into the frequency of heaven, and God is downloading wonderful mysteries to me each day that I'm going to share with the world. That just wakes me up every day. And so it lights a fire under me to record the next podcast, to make the next post, to write the next keynote, to communicate, because I believe that I'm doing it for my creator that I am so grateful for. So my question to you is, because I've said a ton, but it's just to like tee you up and kind of give you some time to think about it. What would you say is your most inspiring idea of you? How do you see yourself? What do you think about when you think of you? When you hear your name announced, what idea comes to mind for you?
First thing that comes to mind is that idea of being a servant, being one of God's servants, in the earth, or another word for that is a steward, and show good stewardship. When I look at myself and I continue to examine myself and I ask myself, am I being my best version? Am I being better today than I was yesterday? That's the continued, other than waking up in the morning and saying, thank you, God, for waking me up this morning. The next question that comes to my mind is, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? I'm given a responsibility to carry out every single day, and how can I do that, to my best ability? So how am I being the best servant or the best steward with what I've been given? And have I even discovered what I am capable of? Because Ephesians 3:20 says, now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all, more than we ask or even think. So there's an infinite amount of potential that I have, yes, that I can give to the world. And have I even, then again, talking about the subconscious mind, have I even discovered it? Woo. Have I even discovered that? And once I discover this now, how can I develop it and release it? And I think that's just over a year ago, that's when I started my LLC, my speaking LLC, because I've been in ministry. I've been in public communication for, been a public figure for about over 18 years or so now. 19. And I said, what more can I do? Yeah. What more can I do? Because I'm like, my vision has always been from the pulpit to the boardroom. How can I figured that I preach the best. I communicate the best. I relate to people the best when I'm in both worlds. I cannot be limited to just some people can just do it and be limited to the pulpit. That's not me. You know what I'm saying? I get better when I'm doing this, and when I'm having conversations, when I'm with people, when I'm at community events, and it brings me life and it brings me a lot of joy, yes, to do that. So that's why I said, what else can I do that? And God said, you have a mouth. I gave you a mouth. I gave you a word. He said this, I did not limit you to just the pulpit. You did.
Come on, man.
So I'm like, oh, what am I limiting myself to? Because my ultimate thing is, if I die today, what is he going to say? What is God going to say? Am I going to get my well done, you good and faithful servant? Or am I going to get depart from me because I never knew you? And I want to at least tell God this, Lord, I tried. I gave it my best, and that's a challenging thing for me. And that really pushes me beyond my comfort zone is saying, am I giving my best today? if you've given me an idea, am I doing what I can do to tap into that idea and expand on that idea? Because the majority of the time with ideas that we have, we will not act on.
No. So true.
We will not act on. It's like that self-doubt will come in and say, will it really work? Somebody else will say something, I don't know if that's meant for you.
You know it. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. But I'm like, if that was something that God was, at least the worst thing that's going to happen is it won't work and I'll fail at it. Right. But failure does not mean I'm a failure. It means I tried and I learned by failing. I'm going to know what to do better next time. There's, Giannis Antetokounmpo, there's processes.
That was an awesome interview. Yes.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Right. Yeah, man. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, he reframed that thing quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great take. Yeah,
when you fail, it just means you've missed the mark. But if you're a failure, you're repeating that same mistake over and over and over again, showing that you've learned nothing. So, yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Yes, man. Well, I want to thank you, man. I want to thank you so much for all the wisdom, all the nuggets, too numerous to even try to name. Just thank you so much, man, for sharing this moment. Thank you for saying yes to jumping on. I knew you would add value. I knew you would come with the fire, and you over delivered. I'm just excited about sharing you with the world, man. I truly believe everyone has a voice, and that voice is to be valued. And a part of that value is ensuring that I do, even as you just spoke so eloquently, I mean, you articulated it so beautifully, is that, it's like, man, am I doing everything I can with what I've been given? So I've been given a podcast. I've been given, a passion for communication. I've been given all these tools. I've been given the spiritual gift of teaching. And so how much of this can I, pour into expanding your voice and those that are, gracious enough and giving enough to join me on this podcast. So I am going to share you with the world. I'm going to do my part, man. I'm going to do my part, but I am so blessed. I'm so grateful, man, for you saying yes and you taking your time out, because you don't get this hour back. You already gave it. You already invested it. So I want to honor the hour that you just gave us and do my very best, man, to get you out there as much as I can, because the world needs to hear, more of the world needs to hear you. It's never enough, man. So more and more need to hear you, man. So thank you so much. Yeah, man. Well, all right, guys, that is it. Another episode, another inner view on the I Am the Possible podcast experience. You know what it is. You know where you is. I is your host, Terrell C.W. Lynch, Mr. What, telling you guys once again, I love you guys. I'm praying for you guys. I'm believing in you guys. Until next time, salute, shalom, love.